Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Township of Georgian Bay for our Planning Council. It's Tuesday, October 7th, 2025. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9 o'clock. And in the spirit of reconciliation, we wish to acknowledge the enduring relationship between Indigenous peoples and the lands that they have traditionally occupied. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic connection they have to this place, the land, the water, the sky, and all that live in, on, and above it. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this place and who continue to care for it. And we want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, may they remain relevant today. May they guide our decisions and our actions. We commit to learn, to educate, to honor sacred places, and to take action towards real truth and reconciliation. Miigwech. Council, any declarations of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest or anything else you think we need to know? All right, seeing none. At this point, I understand we do not have any open forum, and so we're going to go into the Public Planning Act public meeting portion of our meeting. This morning, there's a public meeting scheduled for one proposed zoning bylaw amendment. I will briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the meeting. First, the clerk will advise council as to when, how, and to whom notice of the public meeting was circulated for the proposed amendments being considered. The clerk will also advise of the appeal procedures. Next, staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the bylaws and provide any other information that is relevant to the application, and the clerk will summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the public will have an opportunity to provide comments on the amendments being considered. Please be respectful of time and be concise with your comments. All commentators are requested to state their name and address and sign in on the list provided on the table in front of you. After the public discussion, the public meeting will be closed. Council will then have an opportunity to provide comments for clarification. I now declare this meeting to be a public meeting pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act to deal with the following proposed amendments. Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z25-08, hold for 380 Macey Bay Road. To our clerk.
Notice of the meeting was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 to 800 meters of the property subject to the proposed applications, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the applications. These notices were sent at least 30 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposed applications, and a key map showing the location of the properties or description of the lands to be affected by the proposed amendments. Other relevant information may have also been provided. These circulations were all provided in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act and the Township of Georgian Bay official plan. Members of the public are advised at this point that unless they make an oral or written submission to council before council makes a decision on these applications, that any subsequent appeal to the Interior Land Tribunal may be dismissed by the tribunal. Anyone who wishes to be notified of council's decision respecting the proposed zoning bylaw amendments must submit a written request to the planning department.
Thank you. Can you summarize the correspondence received to date?
It is on.
Slow down a little.
Correspondence relating to zoning bylaw amendment file Z25.
No, do we have speakers in this?
Speak up a little louder, like the partner next to you.
Get closer to the mic.
Correspondence relating to zoning bylaw amendment file Z25-08 were received as follows.
Okay, I'll read this part. How's that? Because I'm a louder, more obnoxious person. Correspondence relating to zoning bylaw amendment file Z5-08 were received as follows. 7 letters of support were received from the District of Muskoka, Joanne and Bernard Mitsko, Josh Brass, Lynn Lawrence, Nestor and Simon Beriliuk, Joyce Nawakin, and Rennie Bidenote. I apologize for the mess I made of those names. 1 letter of support was received from Jean DeMarco in which she reviews the history, discusses a recent change of ownership, cites concerns regarding activities versus protection of natural heritage and habitats, and asks council to use the proposed hold as an opening to reconsider the planning of the lands. 1 letter was received from Severn Sound Environmental Association stating they have no comment as to properties outside of the intake protection zone. Although many questions were raised by the public, most did not evolve into formal comments. Nonetheless, the predominant concern remained the protection of the natural environment. Now, back to the mayor. The municipal planner, Jeff Kratke, on the file will now provide an overview of the application, its processing to date, and the purpose and effect of the bylaw. Mr. Kratke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Council. Everyone in attendance here today, in person and online. With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I will share my screen. As the mayor and the clerk have already mentioned, we're here today for a public meeting regarding application number Z2508 regarding 380 Macey Bay Road, where the Township of Georgian Bay is in fact proposing this zoning amendment. The subject lands are located approximately between Honey Harbor and Port Severn, but obviously closer to Honey Harbor. The subject lands themselves, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, are quite large, and they in fact front onto Macey Bay Road and Honey Harbor Road. Or sorry, they front onto Georgian Bay, but have access directly to Macey Bay and to Honey Harbor. However, the limit of redevelopment that is being discussed today is only a subsection of those subject lands, and you can see that in this map. The purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment is to add a hold provision to the site-specific tourist commercial type 2 exception 6 zone on maps 137 and 138 of Schedule A of the zoning bylaw. The hold provision is described in row 1 of table 18.1 in subsection 18.1.2 of the zoning bylaw. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to allow termination by the township of the existing site plan agreement. There's a great deal more background to this file that I'm going to get into today, but essentially in 2017 and in 2021, the Ontario Municipal Board and the LPAT, the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal, which are both now considered the Ontario Land Tribunal, issued decisions and orders with site-specific official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments, and a site plan agreement for the subject land's redevelopment area. On November 5th, 2024, 287-3800 Ontario Inc. became the owner of the subject lands. And since that time, there have been ongoing discussions regarding the site plan agreement with that owner. I'm not going to get into a great deal of information with respect to the character of the subject and adjacent lands, except to say that the CT26 to CT26 holding provision would be over all of the lands within the redevelopment area. It does not include lands within the SR5 zone or the rural zone or the environmental protection zones on the subject lands. As the clerk already made clear, the district has no objection. The source water protection has no objection or concern. Township senior management team are continually involved in the ongoing discussions with the current owner. 8 owners now from the public, given some recent correspondence that came in late, are very much in support of this zoning bylaw amendment. But I want to make clear that beyond the correspondence the council received, that there was a lot of discussion between myself and some of the members of the public who not only made comments to council as part of correspondence, but have been asking questions. And I think what's important for everyone to keep in mind is that the purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment is only for the potential of placing a hold provision back on these CT26 zone lands. It is not to reopen the 180 park model homes that were allowed on the site by the Ontario Municipal Board in 2017. So I just want everyone to keep in mind this is with respect to a hold provision that was removed as a result of the site plan that the board ordered in 2021, and only if we come back to council with that need. So again, the recommendation today is be it resolved that the Council for Township of Georgian Bay accepts all information regarding this zoning bylaw amendment Z 2508 presented at today's public meeting, refers all information and comments to staff for further discussion with the agent, district staff, and anyone who commented or wishes to ask questions, and the township staff shall not schedule the final meeting for this application until such time as all those comments have been fully addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone here representing the applicant or the applicant themselves who wish to speak?
Their agent, Ms. Lemieux, is online. I'll bring her over.
Thank you. Ms. Lemieux, welcome.
Good morning, Your Worship. Thank you very much. Again, good morning, council, members of the public. My name is Victoria Lemieux. I'm an associate planner with Morgan Planning and Development. And for the record, our address is 201 Matchedash Street South, Unit 101, Aurelia, Ontario. Your Worship, I am the consulting planner on behalf of the new property owner for the subject lands. I'm here this morning in attendance to listen to any additional comments that might be provided through this public meeting this morning. As staff mentioned, we are working closely with the various departments through this current pre-consultation process in order to establish a site plan agreement to be executed between the township and the new owner of the property. We do hope to be in a position to submit a full agreement package in as short term as we can, pending any final plans and studies that need to be completed. Ideally to avoid the need for the township to implement the proposed holding provision, but nevertheless, we are here listening in and very much appreciate any comments that have been written in so far and for others that may be provided this morning for those in attendance. So thank you very much. And I'm here also for any questions that anyone may have. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public who wish to make any comment on this application? Seeing 2 hands go up in the back row, gentlemen, come on forward. Are you a tag team or are you flying solo? And you know, because I know both of you, I have to remind you, we're hoping your comments are precise, concise, and not all morning. And I want you to take that in the best positive.
Good morning, Mayor Kutsier, members of council, members of staff. I'm Tom Bain. I'm here on behalf of the Eastern Georgia Bay Protective Society. I have traveled from Mississauga this morning to speak with you about the property at 380 Macey Bay Road because it is important I represent the Eastern Georgian Bay Protective Society, and we have been working for nearly 15 years to ensure the development of the site in an environmentally correct manner. 380 Macey Bay Road is a very special place. It is 169 acres of old-growth natural forest. It contains several provincial significant wetlands. It contains several provincially designated fish habitats. It is home to several species in danger, including the least bittern and the Blanding's turtle. It is home to several species at risk, including the whippoorwill. It is perhaps the largest nursery for the muskellunge on Earth. It is a designated hunting and fishing ground for Indigenous people. 380 Macey Bay Road must be developed with great care in order to preserve its natural heritage values. A great deal of time and expense has been devoted by concerned township residents over the past 15 years to ensure the environmentally sensitive development of 380 Macey Bay Road and bring us to where we are today. The township has an official plan and a zoning bylaw, 1475, which regulates the use and development of private land in the township. As well, the province of Ontario has the Ontario Building Code, which regulates building construction on private land. It would appear that the new owner, the current owner, Mr. Lynn, is not aware or familiar with these regulations and has proceeded with construction in non-compliance. I understand that several stop work orders have been issued by the Township of Georgian Bay for work proceeding in non-compliance with these regulations. However, in spite of this these stop work orders, Mr. Lynn has continued his construction work. Mr. Lynn's conduct cannot be tolerated. The Georgian Bay Association, along with the Honey Harbor Association, the Moore Point Residents Association, and the Cognition Cottage Association have all supported the need for environmentally sensitive development of the 380 Macey Bay Road site. Township councilors for wards 2 and 4, including District Councilor Cooper, area councilors Hazelton and Jarvis, have supported the need for environmentally sensitive development of 380 Macey Bay Road. The township planning staff, and in particular Director Whitliff, are to be congratulated for bringing this zoning bylaw amendment forward today. The Eastern Georgian Bay Protective Society, along with the majority of those present today, strongly support the approval of this application. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't think you did the official "you are Tom Bain" thing at the beginning, so I have shared that now with our clerk.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Edwards.
Okay, thank you. I am Pat Edwards. I'll give you a little bit of background. In 1972, I married into the Smith Island clan and found there were 23 family cottages. That was a bit of a challenge. However, as a child, I spent time on the bay because my mother is part of the Charlevoix clan. A few hundred names of that over in Penetang. So I saw the bay back as a child and met some interesting people. In fact, a great uncle of my mother's who had worked at Muskoka Mills back in the 1870s. I was 5 years of age, he was 94. Very interesting. Anyway, I got involved with the community due to going to taking my kids to the swim beach, where I ended up as the treasurer of Cognition. It was bankrupt at the time. Somebody had loaned in $2,500. Now it's got a couple $100,000 in the bank. So that's been a good thing. And then the unfortunate, or maybe very fortunate, was approximately 15 years later, I was attending a cocktail party at Peter Cooper's brother's, where I was approached and in a weak moment agreed to run for the position of councillor, representing the Northern Shore segment of the township, and spent 2 terms at this table and found it very interesting and enjoyable, and well, enjoyable some of the time. Anyway, Macey Bay. First contact was, so I was elected in November of 2010, I believe. And in March of 2011, council was taken down to the site in a little school bus where there were 3 little cottages under construction. And we heard the spiel of how this was going to be a short-term rental operation, which would be perfect for old people like myself who couldn't navigate on the bay and therefore would be able to drive in and have a rental property. However, things changed dramatically. That individual, probably only in his mid-50s, suddenly got sick and passed away several months later. And then everything sat sort of dormant. But then it was in the fall of 2013 that the then mayor brought forward the issue of Macey Bay, telling us how he had had a secret meeting with the developer a year earlier with no staff members present, and which made me certainly ask what was agreed to at that point. So then at that same meeting, I met Gene DeMarco, a neighbor and a lawyer, and have spent a lot of time working on mutual other things because I'm a tax person with Gene. So I'm very much aware of the Macey Bay saga, and some of the history I think is very important. The key development, as some of you may know, was to have a 180 unit trailer park. And land was so tight that people were going to get around by golf cart. The interesting thing is, if I remember correctly, a development plan for the land was passed, but none was ever passed for the water. So I don't know where that stands today, but if I were the owner, I would be wanting to find out whether I'm going to be able to have access to the bay, because as I remember on another project, the township sold some land that it had, and it turned out that the person couldn't land their boat there because it was fish habitat. So this may be a similar type of situation because, as Tom has alluded, this is a very, very, very special piece of property, both on the land, but more importantly, in the water. So that is going to be a major issue to be dealt with. So I decided not to run for a third term, even though the late Mike Kennedy urged me to run for mayor with his support. However, I have paid attention to what has transpired at the council table, re Macey Bay since 2018, and I still think this is a very unique property. So one of the things I was aware of was that the federal government had allocated funds to allow the purchase of additional lands for federal government parks. This is important since the west northern boundary is, I understand, the Georgian Bay National Park, which in my mind presented an opportunity. I took this opportunity to the Ontario Green Party. I was a member, suggesting that the Macey Bay property would be, even though this is a provincial versus a federal, would be an excellent candidate for a purchase by the federal government and to add to the national park. Unfortunately, the person who opened the mail or read the emails thought that since this was a federal issue, they shouldn't get involved. Of course, their candidate in Muskoka didn't get elected, so they should have listened to me, I think. The listing of Macey Bay property for sale, in my view, was a positive thing, especially appreciating how many millions had been lost in an attempt to develop a 180-unit trailer park. Now, there's some interesting things that I think the new owners need to understand, and that is, first of all, to confirm that there has been no approval of any water development on the property. As well, I remember, and Tom could correct me, that the proposed sewage plant for the then trailer park was one of the biggest sewage plants of this type in the world. So good thing it probably didn't get developed in that format. Now, possible solutions. I think something that the owner and others should look at is the possibility of doing a deal, a transaction, an agreement similar to what was done with the Oak Ridges moraines. For any of you who remember what happened to Mr.
You
McGee.
recognize you're going well beyond the scope of what's in front of us today.
Well, yeah, but
so
I'm just.
I would like you to be relatively brief with,
Okay,
with your interesting ideas, please.
Okay, so what I'm suggesting is that consideration be given to looking at a deal such as what's done with the Oak Ridges Moraine and involving the land trust or other similar body, because there's a lot of land here. It's very special. It should be preserved. But we would like to have the person who has put out many millions rewarded for taking on this and getting a win-win where the environment gets protected and the public wins and the owner also wins. So that's my suggestion, is to look outside of just the straightforward zoning of the property, but rather to look at valuations and look at what can be done if one approaches and discusses these things with government, both at the provincial and federal level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? And while you're coming forward, anyone online who wishes to speak, please put your hand up so that our clerk can recognize you and bring you forward. And Councillor Bocek, your hand was going to have to be patient.
My name is Richard Grossi on Macey Bay Road. I just have two questions. Does this hearing have any bearing to do on the water's edge, such as the beach or the inner water area? One. Two, has the M&R been notified, or are they involved in any of this hearing?
I'm going to turn that over to our planner, please.
Yes and yes. And MECP has been advised as well.
Okay.
I love the brevity of that. Anybody else in our audience here wish to speak on this matter? And if any hands been raised on our virtual audience, or what? Okay. Ms. Nowison, please correct me in the pronunciation of your name. Nawasan?
Nowison.
Nowison.
Yes.
I will try to remember, and my apologies.
Thank you. Just a brief antidote and then another question. My property is Toby's Bay, and the Macy's Bay area that we have been familiar with over the years since my parents bought our property in 1961, we affectionately call the pond. So when you go under Prisk Bridge straight to the end, that was what we would call the pond. And my dad was known as Stan the Muskie Man. And it was just common knowledge that muskie spawned down there, and we would see them coming out in the spring at the foot of our bay where our dock is. So that is a special place for us, because we knew that over all of these years that was a spawning grounds for not just muskie but other fish. So it is very concerning for us. Also, if there is any dock access down there in the future, property owners along our mainland shoreline and Sunset Bay, or I'm sorry, Prisk Island, are worried about the traffic that would be created if there was access docks at the end at the pond, as I mentioned, with boats coming underneath the bridge on a frequent basis because it is all wetland all the way down there. And they're not allowed to have docks on the Island 95 side. So because it was a protected fish habitat, and that happened back in the early 90s. So that's all I want to say about that. And I'm also just wondering whether or not in the 2017 approval of this site plan, were the First Nations people with fishing and hunting rights to the area consulted, specifically the Bowlesley Island First Nation, Wasasking First Nation, Wata First Nation, or the Moose Deer Point First Nations? Were they notified and consulted before that happened? And was that even a requirement back then? I'm not sure.
Mr. Kratky, do you have any knowledge of that?
Mr. Mayor, of course, none of the current planning team were with the township at that time. I've not seen anything in the file that would suggest there was any dialogue. However, again, at this point in time, that board decision from 2017 regarding use is not in question. We're simply here today discussing a potential hold, but it is an excellent point, and we do not know the answer.
I do know that the Wasasking First Nation were asking questions about it, perhaps in the last 3 years, but I'm not sure about the other three, but they all have, you know, fishing and hunting rights in this area. So anyway, that's all. Thank you so much.
I'm going to turn to Messrs. Edwards and Bain. Given all your history, are you aware of any consultation with the First Nations in the area by staff or the applicant?
Mr. Mayor, in answer to your question, yes, the Eastern Georgia Bay Protective Society was in contact with both Indigenous people, including the Moose Deer people, including the Métis people as well. And they were very interested. And I have significant files dating back probably as early as 2014 on course that we have correspondence with the Indigenous people. And they were very anxious to have input on this very special place, especially in view of the fact that it was a designated hunting and fishing ground for them.
Are you aware of the township?
No, I'm really not.
Okay.
We tried to raise this matter at several of the hearings, but I'm not sure that we raised it with the township.
Yeah.
But I do have significant files on this of.
I don't doubt you did your homework. I'm not sure whether the township or what is now the OLT did theirs.
In any case, I just want to bring your attention that there is correspondence in this matter that exists. I have it. I can provide it if you'd like it.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else? Okay, Mr. Mitsko?
Hey there. So the chief planner told us that the purpose of this meeting and the purpose of the action related to this meeting is not to explore 180 trailers again on the property, but we haven't been told what it is for. So what is it for?
Mr. Kratky.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is an opportunity for the township to put in place what was in place after 2017 prior to 2021, which is a holding provision. And what a holding provision might do is prevent very clearly in the zoning bylaw any use of the lands until such time as there is a satisfactory site plan agreement executed between the current owner and the township. There is currently a site plan agreement that is executed. However, it predates the current owner. It does apply to the current owner, but it predates them. And the site plan agreement has some strengths. It has some weaknesses. The township staff brought this matter to council because there was paralysis in ongoing discussions with the current owner regarding the site plan application that they were making. And there was a situation that predates the current owner. The past owner was already in default of the site plan agreement. So that is not the current owner's responsibility or fault. The previous owner that received all of these approvals from the Ontario Land Tribunal was already beyond their delivery dates for many things within the site plan agreement. And so the new owner has been playing catch up. So in their defense, they've come into a situation where they were already in a difficult circumstance. That being said, again, this is only to discuss the possibility of placing a hold on the site, on the lands. I hope that's more clear.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, and council will probably be asking exactly the same question when we get the turn, but thank you for the input. The question for those who didn't hear it was, what does that hold actually mean?
So when the board originally ordered the zoning be put in place for the site-specific permissions on these lands, it included a holding provision on that permission. And typically, the way in which a hold is used in our municipality is to require site plan approval. So there are many instances where council, or in this case, the board, approve zoning, but say, okay, it doesn't actually take effect until there is what's called a site plan agreement, which is a much more detailed document than the zone itself to implement the land uses that are permitted by the zoning bylaw.
I'm going to ask our director of planning to supplement that response. And if you're going to have more conversation with us, we'll need to bring you forward because nobody online can hear what you're saying because you're nowhere near a microphone. And Mr. Edwards, I'm going to go to Director Whitlib first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll just rephrase perhaps a different way what Mr. Kratky already said. So there are existing permissions that were granted by the Ontario Municipal Board and the Local Planning Appeals Tribunal that are baked into. They exist in our official plan and our zoning bylaw. So there are development permissions for that, for those park model trailer units. None of what we're considering here today takes away those permissions. They're there, but what it does is it freezes those permissions until the current owners enter into a new site plan agreement with the township. So it puts a pause on any development on the property, if I may characterize it that way.
Mr. Edwards?
Just to make the point, my understanding is, well, there was a site plan agreement.
Okay, let's get you to the microphone because otherwise I have to repeat everything, and then you're going to criticize my repetition.
All the people online. My point is, my understanding is that while there were permissions granted with regard to the land development, nothing was given with regard to the water development. And we could well end up in a situation as we had with the piece of property that we sold, that the person had the piece of property, but they couldn't land on it because it was fish habitat, which I always thought was a little bit of a bad thing to sell people that. But I think this is key in this thing is the water has not, to my understanding, had any permissions granted.
However, the land itself has lots of permissions granted, but those permissions are also subject to a site plan agreement because they can't actually exercise, if I understand correctly, they cannot exercise the rights they were given by the now OLT without the site plan agreement being, shall we say, updated. And this hold that we're considering today would in fact confirm that they need to get a new site plan agreement if they want to exercise any of the rights on that property. Mr. Crack.
So the board decision in 2017 did include a lengthy discussion about the historical, or what I would call acquired rights, that run with the land for the previously existing trailer park that had been present. And while the board didn't clearly enunciate those rights, they did very much reflect them in the decision in their comments that there was and should be access to the water via a dock, and that there was and should be access to the water via a boat ramp, and that there was and should be access to the water via a beach area. The boat ramp is coincident with a type 1 fish habitat, but it did pre-exist any of the planning matters in this township by quite some time. So the board did recognize those in its decision. And so it would be my quick answer that no, the CT26 zone does, from the board's decision, benefit from access to the water that originated with the previous trailer park. There were some other rights that the board member enunciated.
At this point, what's in front of council is whether or not we want to add a hold to this property.
Correct.
Okay. Any other members of the public online, in the crowd? Okay. We're now turning it over to council for their comments, questions. Councillor Bocek, your turn first.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, just a little bit of background on myself and my involvement in this. I served on council for the two terms that this was brought forward, from the time basically Dreamers Trailer Park existed, and then there was an application made to move this into what we have in front of us today. I had the pleasure of sitting beside Councillor Edwards during that time, who educated me very well on what was happening. In the beginning, I was in favor of the development, but after education, it was made very clear that this development could not be sustained, and the waterfront need to be protected. I attended meetings with Mr. Tom Bain on Moore Point, who added education on this matter, and as well spent many hours and days in the kitchen of Jeannie DeMarco, listening to the facts at hand. So I'm very well aware. Today, I'm your district councillor at the District of Muskoka, as well as the Township of Georgian Bay. And as far as this councillor goes, I do agree with the hold provision that's brought in front of us today. And I understand that the council of the day did not want this to happen. We voted it down, but it went to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the province of Ontario overrid what we were intending to do. It was not this council's decision, it was the OLT's decision. So as far as this councillor goes today, I'm in favor with the hold provision, and hopefully moving forward, we can work out the details and protect that waterfront as well too. Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you. And through the mayor, I'll be very quick. Just a couple questions for our planning department. And one is Jean DeMarco brought forward quite an extensive letter. I'm just hoping that it is well looked at and the appropriate research is done. I'm asking planning if they will be staying in touch with those that are interested, Jean DeMarco specifically, because of her background on this site, on this whole operation, and people like Tom Bain, who has significant history as well. I request that those professionals be kept in the loop on this. That's all.
So I've already had an ongoing discussion with Jean. Mr. Bain and I have not had the opportunity yet to familiarize ourselves with each other. What I will say is that I'm very happy to keep people informed with respect to the holding proposal. But of course, in terms of a discussion regarding the actual approved development, that's not what's in question.
Thank you.
Councillor Hazelton.
it's a new world. And we have a new team. And I want to start off by saying what you have brought forward today would never have been brought forward by our planning staff in the past. So accolades, kudos, thank you for being sensitive to what the community is interested in protecting large tracts of land like this that are extremely sensitive. You've heard that the community actively engaged the Indigenous community in the community's attempt to provide input to the township. Sadly, your predecessors didn't really listen to that kind of input, but I think what I've already heard is that you're prepared to listen to that input. I think that that is great. Again, kudos. I do have a question. You've heard that the previous decisions and approvals from outside the township were purely for a site plan. And I was reading, thank you for giving us 18.1.2 or whatever. So the approvals to lift a hold are simply, I'm not going to say it trying to diminish it, but it's simply a site plan. And all of council, I can assure you in the previous go around, all were hounding staff. What about the waterfront plan? What about the waterfront plan? There's no talk about a waterfront plan. And clearly you have indicated that there are some rights that have gone along with it, but any development of that property to the scale of what was expected and previously approved could not have survived on the minimum capabilities that you just outlined that were inherently available as part of the property. And so what can we do today or now to redefine the hold to not only include a site plan, but a waterfront plan? And if we were to ask Councillor Edwards, he was chomping at the bit several terms ago. We need a waterfront plan. We need a waterfront plan. How can they possibly develop this without a waterfront plan? So my question is, how can we learn from the past and agree that not only a site plan is a requirement for a hold lift, but also a waterfront plan, so we have the full package? How do we get there?
That is a very interesting question. I've just given it some very quick thought now, so this is only a preliminary answer. Again, as of now, there is an executed site plan agreement in effect between the township and the owner of this property in the CT26 zone. It has strengths and it has weaknesses. And some of its strengths are due to the fact that the legislation in 2021 gave the township more power. And so it is only if the pre-application discussions regarding amending that site plan agreement cannot reach a mutually satisfactory conclusion, which I think there still is an opportunity to do so. But it's only if that is a situation that staff is unable to resolve with the current owner that we would be actually coming back to council for a decision to put into effect this zoning bylaw amendment. If we were to do so, and that means that the township would subsequently terminate the existing site plan agreement, then yes, we would be negotiating a new site plan agreement with the owner, the current owner of those lands. And many items that would not necessarily be discussed with respect to an amendment might enter those discussions. However, in terms of the waterfront that existed with that previously existing historic trailer park, no, that the board decision is very clear that those rights move forward with this land and through that decision. So we would not be able to introduce a discussion to reduce the access to the water in any way, shape, or form. But certainly there may be opportunities to discuss other matters elsewhere on the site through the site plan agreement. What I will say, one of the key changes that the council is well aware that the province made through 3 pieces of legislation, 2 of which were enacted in 2022 by the province and 1 in 2024, were to take site plan discussions completely out of the public purview. And so while staff can disclose the existence of those discussions and certainly can receive guidance from the community and from others in terms of the comments we hear, sadly, we can't be as completely transparent as we were prior to 2022. And additionally, there's been a lot of discussion recently in provincial circles. The deputy minister has written letters with respect to municipal powers. And one of the key powers that the province has apparently, and I'm not a lawyer, so I will simply say apparently, removed from the municipal toolbox are legal requirements for construction mitigation plans. And one of the strengths of this site plan agreement that currently exists, and why I'm not willing to come and just simply say, let's throw it out. One of the strengths that exists with it is that power. And that power is very key. Now, council does have that power in other respects, and site alteration bylaw provides for various powers that are not under the Planning Act, which we would obviously, as municipal staff, continue to work with our bylaw enforcement staff to help ensure are enforced. But what I will say is that it is not going to be a simple, straightforward decision as to whether we move forward with this hold. But this hold is a part of the tools that we will have to ensure that the site plan, if it is amended in a way that is sensitive to the natural environment and does consider the community's interests.
Director Whitlib and then Councillor Cooper. Oh, you had.
I'll let Derek go first, of course. I'm not letting, I'm asking.
Thank you. Yeah, just to summarize, we do have the authority under Section 41, Site Plan Control of the Planning Act, to regulate development. So any alteration, proposed development that might come forward as a result of potentially a revised proposed development from the owners, we would have the ability under site plan control to regulate waterfront development. So any changes to the waterfront, altering the shoreline, that sort of thing would be within the scope of site plan control. As Mr. Kratky mentioned, we also have the site alteration bylaw as well. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'll take the opportunity while I have the mic. I heard some great comments of support from the planning department, from members of council, and from Mr. Bain. I want to make it clear that this initiative to bring forward this holding provision to freeze the permissions on the property were the brainchild of Mr. Kratky. So it was his idea, and I think it's a great one. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a couple of quick follow-ups, and I think I heard part of the answer to this question, but I wasn't trying to suggest that we remove the waterfront rights that existed with that decision, but what I wanted to highlight is when the current existing site plan allowing 180 trailers is in existence, a dock and a ramp couldn't possibly service that build out. And so one of the things that council and the community were really worried about was that property would die if they didn't have a very robust waterfront plan, and there was no waterfront plan provided. And so I look at these as tightly linked. Like, you can't have a successful land-based development if you can't identify and understand what you can do and will do on the water. So I think they're really tightly linked, and I think that's what I heard from you. So thank you for that. And the other thing that I've maybe heard, and I just want to, I may sound like a broken record sometimes, but the site plan, if it's private, is a fail, because we live in a complaint-driven feedback mechanism. And if the community doesn't know what's going on and what is permitted, how can they possibly offer complaint. The community have been very active in bringing staff up to date on the things that have been going on that property. Thank you, community. This is excellent. We need to keep doing it. However, if they don't know what the rules are, what the permissions are, then how can they possibly give us effective complaint? And so this has to be a public document. This site plan absolutely has to be in the public domain so that people know what has been approved. And historically, we always went through a public process to get there. And then somebody said, well, we shouldn't publish those things. Well, we can't operate in a complaint-based system if we don't make it public. So we either fix the complaint.
Point's been made 3 times now.
There you go. Repetition is a good thing sometimes.
Mr. Kratky.
Please contact the MPPs and express those comments to them. The township registers most site plan agreements on title, and anyone can go to the land titles office and read copies. That's not to say that that's true of all. Some that are very large, only notices are registered. In 2021, when this site plan was entered into, the process had a public face and allowed for public comments and discussion. But at the same time, it also did allow for very complex documentation to be held in private where notices were just given. That being said, at this point, staff can only follow the laws of the Planning Act today. And we would be very supportive if the owner ever wanted to be more transparent with the public. That is totally up to the owner. But as staff, we can discuss these matters to a certain extent, but beyond that, it becomes a matter of private discussion.
Councilor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that report, Jeff. As has been said, it's great that you took up this initiative, and we need to deal with this situation at some point. It's been going on a long time. But I just wanted to, so thank you for that, and thank the public for being here about this. It's most important to have our constituents actively involved in something like this. At the outset, there was some comment about support by certain organizations, including the District of Muskoka. And I also saw something about support from Severn Sound Environmental, although, as I understand it, Severn Sound Environmental is not actually takes on responsibility for the Macey Bay area. So my question would be, why would we even make that mention then when they do not take it on? And I think it's misleading. Sorry,
so it is within their area of jurisdiction, but it is outside of the water intake protection zone for Port Severn. And I think that was the purpose of their comments. If the organization doesn't make a comment, we don't tell you that. So we don't list all of the special organizations that we communicate with. We only express the ones that actually write back.
Okay, I'm glad they've written back, but I'm saying I wouldn't put a lot of weight on it because they do very little testing in this area. So in that particular area and further north, very little that I'm aware of. So, but I also had a couple of comments, if I may. One is that, as I understand it, there was, during the approval process and the OMB hearing, somehow it got considered that a park model was actually a double park model. Are you aware of that? In other words, 180 approval for 180 would be really 360 because the park model they described was 100 square meters, but the definition of a park model is 50 square meters. Are you aware of that?
So if you're speaking to the number of bedrooms.
No, I'm talking about the size of a park model, period, that was used in all the approvals that were given for Macey Bay through the OLT. somewhere along the way it slipped that a park model was supposed to be 50 meters and defined as 50 meters, but became 100. So do you know anything about that?
So I'm looking at the board decision right now in the order with respect to what a park model is. And in the order, it states a park model unit shall be 100 square meters.
If you look at the definition of a park model, it's 50.
With due respect, and I'd be happy to share my screen if you'd like.
I don't want us to drift too
Okay.
far down this one because it's not connected to the hold itself.
No,
But I
it's
don't mind
100
Councillor
square meters
Cooper
by the board order.
raising this frustration, but let's not discuss it at too great a length.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just trying to point out that that makes a huge difference in terms of what's allowed. So I would ask that you be aware of that as part of your considerations in the future. We need to be mindful of what we've learned from the past. I'd just like to also say that one person there have been a number of people credited for sort of drawing attention to this project at Macey Bay. And I just wanted to mention somebody who supported activities around controlling this. And that was the former founder of the archipelago, the former founder of the Georgian Bay Land Trust, Mr. Wally King. And he, interestingly, was from the archipelago South, and he contributed a variety of different things. I'm not going to detail it, but a variety of different things, and put his heart and head behind it. And that's pretty amazing when you consider it's not even NIMBY. He's from the archipelago, and he cares about this thing because if it can happen here, it can happen elsewhere. And we need to remember that about a lot of different things. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jarvis, you have an additional remark?
Yeah, and I will be brief. My understanding is there's some stop work orders currently on the site. Is that correct?
I'm going to let the chief building official answer that question.
Through you, Mayor. I do believe they have been complied with. I do believe all except one. So I know the dock structures.
And just as a follow-up to that, is what we're proposing today give more teeth to our bylaw people in order to enforce any stop work or anything like that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Jarvis, stop work orders are through the building department, not the bylaw department. So any stop work orders were done for us, but if they're pertaining to permits that are already issued, then the work can continue. If it's pertaining to something that hasn't previously been issued and previously isn't open, then it's subject to site plan agreement. So therefore, it can't move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate all the comments that we've heard, the obvious interest of the public, which I think is extremely important. But these lands, I think, deserve that interest. These are very important lands, very unique and significant lands. And I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said already, but I'm going to direct this to Ms. Lemieux, who is the representative for the applicant. And through you, Ms. Lemieux, I want to strongly encourage the current owners to work with the township and with their neighbors to get a development that is, as I believe, was it Mr. Bain referred to a win-win-win? Or Mr. Edwards, I apologize, gentlemen. My memory is far too short. But I want to strongly encourage the applicant, the owners, to work with the township, to work with their neighbors, to work with those who have significant knowledge about the environmental area and the species at risk and all that, because I think that will be best for everyone. And so that's my comment to you, is that, I mean, I understand there's been some hiccups, and maybe it's been much more than a hiccup. I don't know the details about with stop work orders and the like. They should be working with the township staff to come up with a plan that works as much as possible given the limitations that have been put on us by the now OLT. And so that's my comment to you, to your clients, please.
Thank you.
With that, I think I'm going to read the motion. I have moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved that Council for the Township of Georgian Bay accepts all information regarding zoning bylaw amendment application number Z25-08 presented at the public meeting on October 7th, 2025, and refers all information and comments to Township staff for further discussion with the agent, district staff, and anyone who commented. And Township staff shall not schedule the next meeting of Council to evaluate the application until after comments are addressed. All those in favor? And that has passed unanimously. I almost think our clerk was voting there for a moment. Maybe it's got 8 votes. But that has passed. Thank you very much. All right. This concludes the Planning Act public meeting portion of the agenda. All comments, questions, and concerns raised at the public meeting have been recorded and will be taken into consideration by staff prior to recommendations being brought forward. The public meeting is now closed. Five-minute break. let's get this back, the meeting back on a roll. And so now we want to go into the planning applications staff reports section. And we have an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application number O24-03 and Z24-18 for 15124 Georgian Bay Shore. To our planner, Mr. Kratky, for your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and with your permission and patience, I will share my screen.
Mayor, point of order, please.
Certainly.
So I'd like to draw our collective attention to an email that was circulated to all of council and the CAO on October the 3rd, which was Friday, indicating that this application was not going to be discussed, so we can save our time and not read the report because it wasn't going to be part of this agenda. So I'm curious as to how we can possibly consider this today when we have been informed that we should not be prepared by reading the document to then be prepared to talk about it. So my point of order, Mayor, is that we immediately defer this and not waste our staff time or our time discussing something that we were informed would not be part of this today's discussion.
Yes, we the agenda we received certainly said that the recommendation was to refuse the application. I would like to Planner Kratky to give us a brief overview, and depending upon where that goes, I think we should address the item because it's on our agenda, but I fully accept your concern that most of us did not study it to the extent we otherwise would have because of the recommendation that it would be refused.
So continuing my point of order, Mayor, how can we possibly even consider this if we haven't reviewed the material that was provided to us? We would be making an impromptu, on-the-spot decision, and I think that is unreasonable. It's unfair to each of us as councillors, and I would immediately move to have this noted as a deferral.
I'm going to say to our clerk for the moment.
One, I'd like to clarify, my email did not say that it was being removed from the agenda, simply that it was the change for refusal was being amended to be referred back to staff. So those are very different words in the world of procedure. The item is still listed on the agenda, so it needs to be addressed in some manner, whether that's referred back to staff, whether that's deferred. That is the will of council.
So if your note to us was it would be to refuse, either refused or put back to staff, then I think we should be making that decision before we spend any more time discussing it. Like why would we discuss something that we are going to then say go back to staff?
You know, until we've heard what Mr. Kratky has to say.
But this is a Mayor, this is a point of order and a procedure process here. We have been informed to not waste our time reading the report. Therefore, we have all come here unprepared, and that we have been informed that sometime next month there will be an updated report, and we have been given something 5 minutes ago that suggests that there may be an updated report, but I don't believe that we have an ability to, you know, digest all the material that had been previously provided and then consider the new information. I think that the only possible solution here is to have this deferred.
All right, so you've made it very clear that you would not be willing to vote in favor of this application. But I think because it's on the agenda, we need to address it. I'm hoping very briefly under the circumstances.
I believe that's a failed process.
Thank you. Mr. Kratky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, everyone in attendance here and online. My name, of course, is Jeff Kratky, and I am a planner with the Township of Georgian Bay. We're here to discuss applications number O2403 and Z2418 regarding 15124 Georgian Bay Shore. Jamie Robinson, the agent for the applicant, is also present. Very quickly, the lands are located in the far northern part of the Honey Harbor coastal waterfront community. The proposed development sketch site plan was before this council at the public meeting. There was a small change of the purpose of this application, which I want to draw council's attention to. It was not thought that it was meaningful enough to require a further public meeting, and it was directly in response to comments received from the district, who is the approval authority for our official plan. And so instead of calling it a special policy area, it is a site-specific multi-policy area. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment did not change, and the effect of the concurrent applications is the owner may apply for and potentially obtain building permits to legalize the existing buildings and structures on the subject lands. After my report that was in your package attached to this agenda was written, on September 26th, the agent submitted the list of native plants and renaturalization plan that had been requested for some time. The discussions are currently underway between the agent, the district staff, and myself regarding that renaturalization plan. The agent had also previously indicated some concerns with respect to wording of preambles and other matters with respect to the official plan amendment documents and the zoning bylaw amendment documents, which is still left to be addressed. And therefore, my recommendation today, unlike my recommendation in the lengthy report that was written prior to the renaturalization plan being submitted, is to defer this matter back to staff for ongoing discussions between the agent, the district, and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any comments? All right. I'm going to make one comment, and is that, like so many other times, when things come to council last minute, it's totally unfair to council and staff to ask us to make a decision. And I fully, even though I fully appreciate what Councilor Hazelton raised up, and I'm raising up as a great generality for all of us. Last minute items are inappropriate and disrespectful. We need to have time, both as council and as staff, to consider items before they're in front of us. With that, we saw the motion. I don't have the words in front of me to read. I'm going to say all those in favor, or do I? Well, then where did it go? Okay, this one or no? This one. I apologize. I do have it underneath a pile of paper. Moved by Councilor Graziano, seconded by Councilor Predko. Be it resolved that Council for the Township of Georgian Bay refers concurrent official plan amendment application number O24-03 and zoning bylaw amendment application number Z24-18 back to Township staff for ongoing discussions regarding a satisfactory list of native plants and renaturalization plan. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Move that back to you. Oh, that one you can have back. And now we're going to go on to page 2. And zoning bylaw, excuse me, zoning bylaw amendment application number Z25-04 for 7443 Lake Joseph Road to the planning department. Not good. And that would be, in this case, Mr. Cracky, yet again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And bear with me here. I'm still trying to change my presentations while I share my screen. Just last month, Council had a public meeting regarding this application, and today we're bringing forward application number Z2504 regarding lands at 7443 Lake Joseph Road for your consideration. The agent is Debbie Vandenacre, and I believe she's online. The lands are located between McTier and Highway 400 in the approximately northeast part of the township of Georgian Bay. They were subject, as council is aware, of a provisional consent approval, where the lands in yellow are the lot to be severed, and the southern part of those lands are subject of the rezoning application before council today. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the lands on map 35 and Schedule A of the zoning bylaw from provincially significant wetlands and rural to a site-specific rural zone and additional provincially significant wetlands. As well, to create an RUXX zone requirement, which includes no forestry land use, 120-meter setbacks for buildings and structures from the PSW, the provincially significant wetland, and a 200-meter setback for habitable buildings from a facility at 15 Silver Sands Lake Road, and to create a site-specific holding provision to implement the scoped environmental impact study. The effect of the zoning bylaw allows a rural land use compatible with the existing uses on a lot to be severed that is complementary to the PSW and those adjacent uses. I didn't want to repeat the entire package, but I thought it would be helpful for council to see the subject lands overlaying the existing zoning map. And essentially the rural lands in yellow in the south are the subject of the site-specific rural exception. And these lands in yellow in amongst the PSW are being rezoned to EPPSW by voluntary means of the applicant. My analysis very succinctly is that the zoning bylaw amendment requested by this application has regard for the provincial interests, is consistent with the provincial planning statement, conforms to the Muskoka official plan and the Georgian Bay official plan, and is an appropriate zoning bylaw amendment to the Georgian Bay zoning bylaw. Council has options today, as always. It can approve the zoning bylaw amendment as recommended. It can defer it. It can refer it back to staff for reasons, or it can refuse it. My recommendation is, be it resolved that the Council for the Township of Georgian Bay approve bylaw 2025 regarding this zoning bylaw amendment, attached to this report regarding zoning bylaw amendment application number Z2504. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions with regards to this particular application? Councillor Bochek.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Just a comment more than a question is we always talk about development where development belongs. And I believe this would really suit the property, and I don't think it infringes on anything that we need to be worried about. So I would support this application. It is development where it belongs.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelton.
I just have a question, if I could, Jeff. You indicated it's a 200-meter setback from Silver Sands Road, and the width of the property is 285. So you're saying that the building envelope is really only that 85-meter section?
With the setbacks from the PSW of 120 meters and the 200-meter radius, which was actually part of the public meeting discussion, there is a large area for a building envelope in the approximately east central part of the rural lands to be zoned rural site specific. So if you look at the existing dwelling on the lands, just a little bit to the west of that on the proposed new lot, there is a very robust building envelope for habitable buildings. There's no such restriction on detached garages or anything else that would not be habitable.
So maybe we could pull the map up. It's the one where you're showing that very large building envelope, but then you state that the bylaw or the whatever is going to constrain it to be 200 meters from Silver Sands. So that means that of that 285 meter building envelope, only 85 meters is available.
If it will help, I'll pull up the slide from the public meeting that answers that question very clearly. Okay. So just bear with me one moment. So you'll see here. Share this slide. You see on this drawing, there's setbacks from the sidewalk lines, split lot lines, USW. There's also 200 meter radius. So there's this large trapezoidal area in approximately central part of the lands. Thank you. Sorry. There's this approximately trapezoidal area with the double hatching in the east central part of the lands to be within the site-specific rural zone, which would permit habitable buildings. Of course, any building that is not habitable, so detached garages, sheds, etc., could be elsewhere within the larger building envelope on those lands.
Okay, that diagram is much more explicit. It reflects what I was trying to suggest. The information in our package showed that entire rectangular thing with a blip in the end as being a potential building site, and it just seemed to be inconsistent with the 200 meter setback. So your explanation is clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Bocheck. Be it resolved, the Council for the Township of Georgian Bay adopt bylaw 2025-067 attached to this report regarding zoning bylaw amendment of application number Z24-04. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. All right. And now we're going to staff report on proposed district of Muskoka Resort Development Policy. Director Whitlam, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Planning staff have prepared a brief staff report summarizing the district's proposed resort development policies. Our findings in reviewing the policies is they, at a high level, align with the policies that are existing in the township's official plan already. They're intended to protect resorts as an important commercial entity and contributor to our local economy. Much as the townships of Georgian Bay's policies also do. The district resort policies provide some clarity, and they better define what a resort is. They also contain some new policies that are clear that the inclusion of residential components as part of a resort are to be uses that are undertaken only in serviced urban centers, and a few exceptions of existing resorts in other municipalities. The resort policies also, the updated policies recognize the different forms of tenure that exist in resorts presently. They can be condominium ownership, etc., that all form part of the resort unit pool. And the policies provide some criteria for consideration should an existing resort propose to convert to something else, such as a residential use. So overall, planning staff, again, find the resort policies align with the township's policies. If these resort policies are adopted by the District of Muskoka, we would need to update our resort policies to ensure that that alignment is more precise. The definitions, the different criteria and recognitions that are included in the district's policies would need to be included in our official plan. And I've included those comments in the staff report. I also note that while the district resort policies do permit new resorts in waterfront designations, most of the township's waterfront communities have very clear policies that do not support new resorts. So one of my comments that I'm recommending would be to just reaffirm with the district that local official plans, such as the townships of Georgian Bays, are allowed to be more restrictive and continue to be more restrictive where we wish them to be. So I've identified some options in the staff report in response to the district's requests for comments, and those include do nothing if we have no comments to add. That's certainly an option. We can also, if after having considered the staff report, council wishes to provide additional comments or different comments than those recommended by staff, or proceed with the third option, which is to forward to the district the comments that staff has provided in this report. So I'll leave it at that. I'll answer any questions. I see Mr. Robinson's in the room too. He may be here on behalf of a client listening in on this, so I'll leave it to council if you wish to engage Mr. Robinson with any questions as well.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you for that report. And Derek, I'd like to ask, I guess, a pointed question on this, and that is, when you first joined our township, we talked about the parking at resorts and how the parking models in the city are inappropriate for our community when people come up here and they want all their friends to come up on weekends and there's never enough parking. I'm wondering, I have done a scan and I cannot find anything in the document that talks about parking, but I would hope that we can help the district understand that where there are structures that are encouraging people to come up to our township or the district, that there are policies in place to accommodate the kinds of parking volumes that are needed. Did I miss something in the report? Is it in there? I didn't find it.
Through the mayor to Councillor Hazelton, thank you. Parking standards, they're not a matter of direct district policy, but there's certainly something that are form part of the zoning bylaw. So if as part of this consideration or through the zoning bylaw update, we need to look at resort parking standards, certainly happy to do so. I'm not aware of any parking issues with respect to current existing resorts in the township. I am aware of parking concerns and issues with respect to other residential development that's of density and oriented to the waterfront, and that's my recollection of that conversation. But certainly happy to ensure as we move through the official plan and zoning bylaw review that we look at our parking standards, not only for resorts, but for all uses, to ensure that they meet the very specific needs of the township. As an example, one of the considerations for parking, whether it's Georgian Bay or other municipalities that I would classify as winter communities, is the reality that notwithstanding parking requirements, winter conditions do tend to reduce the available parking on sites, whether they be residential, resort, commercial, other commercial, even where you implement snow storage areas. It just seems that required parking tends to get buried in snow or under snowbanks. So, and that's something we sometimes see where we have I'll call it more Southern Ontario-based development designs transplanted or trying to be superimposed in a winter community like Georgian Bay. It doesn't always work. So I think that's where special consideration for parking in terms of number of spaces and size of spaces to recognize the types of uses and vehicles that are common to the area. So point well taken, and we'll be looking at that.
Thank you. Follow up. So in the interests of strength in documents, I have heard that although zoning bylaws may have statements, official plans that have directional statements that guide the zoning bylaw add strength to the overall outcome of the policy. And I would encourage us to be thinking about adding strength in OP statements so that when we get to the zoning bylaw, it's not a, it is reinforced as a directional statement in addition to a zoning bylaw that might craft the actual details. Thank you.
If I may, thank you through the mayor. So further to that, if pursuant to what I believe is option 2 in the report, if council wishes to add additional comments to the motion in respect to what we've heard or anything else, please do.
Councillor Bochek.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, just a couple of questions for Mr. Woodlett. You stated that one of the things that the District of Muskoka is trying to enforce is that resorts are a key economic driver in our township and that they should not be converted into residential. That is of concern to me because we currently have a resort in Port Severn that we approved to become residential, multi-unit residential. And my question is to you, with the new revised official plan, would that still be allowed to go forward? I don't want to mention the actual name of the property, but I think you know probably what I'm talking about.
So through the mayor, thank you to Councillor Bochek. So the situation that Councillor Bochek is referring to, it is an existing resort in the township. However, it is already within a residential designation in the official plan. So it would not be captured. It was not captured by either existing limitations on conversions, nor would it have been captured by the new policy. And that's the distinction there.
Thank you. So that covers off my second question. So I appreciate the answer.
Councillor Cooper, please.
You're asking for comments, and I just wanted to detail a couple of points on page 2. It's number 3 at the top and also number 3 at the bottom. It's along the lines of the question by Councillor Bochek, but I'm wondering if the language for number 3 at the top, to limit the conversion of existing resorts, should read to disallow. In other words, if we're trying to, encourage economic growth through tourism, I would say no conversion as opposed to limiting, because that says you can convert. That would be the first point, but the second one is similar at the bottom of the page, number 3 as well. Only allow residential units as part of resort in an urban center. So still, it's off the point, which is that we want economic growth through tourism. And I am uncomfortable with any conversion, both number 3s. Any comments from our planning staff on that? Thank you.
Certainly, through the mayor, I think both of those statements that summarize the proposed district policies would apply to existing resorts within serviced urban centers. So that's where I think the district is trying to balance market needs with the current reality. and only allowing for the consideration of residential uses as part of a resort where that resort is in an urban center and is serviced. Again, if council wishes to provide additional comments, it's not a context we really have here other than perhaps, and I don't mind naming any particular resorts, Christie's Mill as an example. That would be one that's serviced in an urban center in our municipality. But that's what the district, I believe, is trying to do, is provide some flexibility, but only where those resorts are in an urban center and on full services.
Thank you. If I could just follow up and just say that that's lovely as to what the district wants. I'm talking about the township of Georgian Bay. Thank you.
Councillor Predko.
Sorry, going back to the definition of roofed accommodation in the document, and whether or not trailer parks or camping parks would be included in that definition, since they are roofed. They're not permanently roofed, but they are accommodation that is in some cases referred to as a resort.
Thank you. Excellent question and worthy of clarification. So in the resort policies that are attached to the staff report, the proposed resort policies from the district, section F 6.1 makes that distinction. And it says that this section of the plan, and I'm reading from it now, this section of the plan applies to commercial resorts, which are considered to be distinct from both residential developments, seasonal or permanent, and other types of roofed commercial accommodation establishments, such as hotels, motels, bed and breakfast operations, and tent and trailer parks. So it does make that distinction. So these policies would, for example, not apply to tent and trailer parks, including one of the matters we discussed earlier today.
Right, exactly. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Just for my clarification, so we have an official plan that is from the district, and they're updating it, and it's, as you said, reasonably consistent with what we have in the township. You're going to check whether the township can be more restrictive than the district in some cases. I appreciate all that, but my question to you is, will anything in this change in our definition of resorts and all that stuff prevent an owner making an application to change the zoning outside of this? In other words, does this lock in, or and I'm thinking of a particular resort in our community that at times was for sale. I understand it's been sold, but I know that part of the real estate listing suggested perfect property for developing residential units, even though the zoning certainly didn't allow it, from what I understand at the time.
Through the mayor to council. So I think that's where proposed district policy F 6.6, conversion of existing commercial resorts, would come into play. That's the last 2 pages of the attachment to the staff report. And it sets out a number of criteria where such conversions to other uses, including residential, could be considered. It establishes some pretty high bars, but that's the district's proposed approach to considering those types of situations should an application like that come forward in this municipality or any other one.
In any case, if the owner was interested in doing that, they'd have to come in front of us and district to get approval for whatever they want to do, whether or not it's within these guidelines.
Just to clarify, it may not need a district approval insofar as a district official plan amendment if it meets the criteria set out in F 6.6, but it could very well require a township official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and site plan approval.
Thank you. Councillor Predko, is that a new question?
No, actually, just as a follow-up, I'm just kind of ruminating over F6.1 and the definition of commercial resort development. I think that the difference between what they're implying is that if a trailer park or a campground, you would have to bring your own trailer or tent. But if the resort provided that accommodation, it would then fall under the auspices of a commercial operation. So I just want to make sure that as we're going forward with different developments, that we maybe do have a clear understanding of what the definition. The difference is, the exact word is accessible to all travelers, and I'm assuming a trailer park, if you bring your own trailer, that's not accessible to everybody. But if they're providing a trailer for you to stay in, that's a different definition.
Through the mayor, thank you. Great comment. So my understanding is that would still apply whether it's a trailer park where you tow your own trailer in, or you're going to the trailer park to stay in your park model that's already there. But happy to add that as a comment to the district if council wishes, to ensure that there's clarity. And if this council wishes to ensure that there's clarity that park model developments are separate from resorts, we can make sure that that's in it. So if there's some guidance in the resolution that council wants to provide,
So
happy to include that as well.
Specific guidance in our resolution.
I think it'd be helpful. I'm
So
taking
we're gonna
notes.
spend a while
The other option
writing
is
a resolution.
Yeah,
Okay.
the other option is I'm taking notes, and unless I want to ensure that the comments I provide represent the comments of all of council rather than individual councilors. That's all.
Because I'm very happy to add a line here, pursuant to option 3 in the staff report and council comments.
Yep.
But if you want me to detail them, then we have to then craft those extra words.
So I heard comments about park models and trailers. I heard comments about parking, and that's what I've got so far.
Councilor Cooper.
Park models that are actually the right size, if I may.
Yeah.
Look up the definition of park model. It says 50 square meters. Thank
Typically
you.
not something a matter of policy, but I think this goes back to what we talked about earlier today with another application. That you can have trailer parks that have park models, and those park models sometimes include what are referred to as double wides. So in that other application, it was clear that the permission was for double wides, right? I don't know that that's a consideration for this policy, but it's certainly consideration from a zoning standpoint for this township moving forward if the township wishes to limit the size of individual park model trailers.
Councilor Hazelton.
Yeah, I was just on that park model thing. It's a point of confusion, and in the previous go around, we had the OMB wording saying park model trailers, and then miraculously at the end, almost in isolation, 100 square meters, and that is not a park model trailer as defined by the building standards committees who design park model trailers. So if we're going to talk about a park model trailer, we want to understand that a park model trailer by definition is a single wide 50 square meters. But if you are going to entertain a double wide, then you want to use the words double wide and 100 square meters and be very clear, because that was not made clear last time and we were bamboozled. So thank you.
Councilor Veitch.
Thank you, and through you again, Mr. Mayor. With the comments from my fellow councillor, Mr. Pretko, my understanding that in the official plan for the Township of Georgian Bay, it states, and you may have to research this, that there will be no new trailer parks or any additions to existing trailer parks within the township. Can you confirm that with me?
Through the mayor. So that language exists in specific waterfront communities. Cognition, Honey Harbor, et cetera. I think it's pretty much in all the waterfront communities that we identify in our official plan.
Okay, thank you. My microphone's not on. I don't know if it was on for the last one. Okay, be it moved by Councillor Graziano, seconded by Councillor Bocheck, be it resolved the Planning Council adopts bylaw 2025-068 to confirm the proceedings of the October 7, 2025 council meeting. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Jarvis, be it resolved the Planning Council does now adjourn at 10:58 a.m. until November 4th, 2025 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor? And that is carried. And we are adjourned.